Hello, and welcome back to Bible Notes. This time we're going to move on to the next letter in the book of Revelation, but we're only going to discuss the first half, and we'll do the next half another time. So we're going to look at Revelation chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. Let's get started. Verse 12 starts, "Write this letter to the angel of the church in Pergamum. This is the message from the one with the sharp, two-edged sword." Verse 13. "I know that you live where Satan has his throne." Oops, my bad, I misread that. I know you live. Hold on. "I know that you live in the city where Satan has his throne." There we go. It's already been a long day. Please just bear with me. "I know that you live in the city where Satan has his throne, yet you have remained loyal to me." "You have refused to deny me even when Antipas, my faithful witness, was martyred among you there in Satan's city." So, Pergamum. The influence of evil was so bad that Jesus had to describe it as basically the seat of Satan, where Satan had his throne. And it was a prominent city in this time, comparable to maybe Las Vegas today. See, today everyone knows where Las Vegas is. Back then everyone knew where Pergamum was. Even Las Vegas's nickname, Sin City, was a good way to describe Pergamum back then too. It was so bad that Jesus had to remind them, "I know where you live." But he also knew and reminded them that even though they live among all that sin and idol worship and all that evil, they are holding on to their faith. Even their city's name, Pergamum, is a good mixture of truth and false. A good mixture of idol worship and the truth. Towers were such a big thing for them, and temples to all these false gods, even temples to Caesar. Every time there was a new Caesar in power, they would build a new temple and pretty much say that the emperor was as good as a god. I mean, this city even had roots leading all the way back to Babylon, and even further back to the Tower of Babel. What was that story even about? Do you remember? Man tried to build a tower to reach heaven, or man decided they no longer needed God. So let's build this tower to deliver man from God. And you know what happened then. God said, no, you either go my way, or I'm going to confuse your languages and separate you. And now look at where we are today. Sound familiar? They tried to take God's influence out of everything. And now look at us today. Our government is trying to keep God out by taking his influence out of everything, thinking that we can do better without him. But it's time that we wake up, because we are not getting better. We need God. Now, let's talk about this two-edged sword. What is it? Well, the sword of his mouth obviously means his word, the holy word of God. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 17, and see what it says. Put on salvation as your helmet, and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Compromised churches need the word of God. Now let's look at Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. The word of God is sharper than the sharpest two-edged sword. Whoops, my bad, I did it again. The word of God is alive and powerful. It is sharper than the sharpest two-edged sword. Cutting between joint and marrow, it exposes our innermost thoughts and desires. Now let's talk about a two-edged sword. One edge is meant to wound. The other edge is meant to cut open an infected wound to allow it to drain and heal. The same thing goes. God will sometimes wound us by his word so that he can heal us by the altar. And sometimes he needs to wound us so that he can shape us in his image. Just because our environment isn't good doesn't mean we get to abandon God. There is no excuse. We need to stay faithful. Let's flip to Matthew chapter 10 and quickly look at verses 32 and 33. 32 says, "Anyone who acknowledges me publicly here on earth, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven." 33. "But anyone who denies me here on earth, I will also deny before my Father in heaven." Well, that is it for this time. I will see you guys next time. And remember, I love you and I'm praying for you. God bless.